Hey everyone, today I'm going to explain topics about MySQL. Everybody knows that MySQL is a tool from Oracle. So Oracle is the company and MySQL is an application. So we'll be looking about specifically about this application MySQL, and so here I'm going to explain you the topics related to DBMS. So basically what is a DBMS, and why do we need a DBMS, and what is RDBMS, and the other one is all the database related terminologies. So these are the four key concepts which I am going to explain you all right now. Okay, so let's focus now. What is a database, or what do you mean by MySQL? If you want to understand what do you mean by a MySQL, first of all you have to focus at SQL. What do you mean by this SQL? SQL is nothing but it's a structured query language. The full form of SQL is nothing but a structured query language. But why are we going to use it? Nothing but it's a kind of language. I would say it's a language. But why do we use it? We are using it to add and retrieve and delete. But what are we going to add, what are we going to retrieve, and what are we going to delete? Nothing but data. So simply we are going to add some data and we are going to retrieve the data which we have earlier added. We are going to delete the data which we have earlier retrieved. So SQL is an application, or SQL is a language. SQL is a language which is used to add, retrieve, delete the data. Then what is MySQL? If you want to understand this MySQL, you have to know about what do you mean by this DBMS. DBMS is nothing but database management system. DBMS stands for database management system. But what is it? Why do we use it? We use this database management system. The name itself explains that it is a management system. Okay, it is a management system. But why are we going to use it? We are going to use it to manage the entire flow of data. When I say entire flow of data, I may say insertion, entire flow of data, that includes insertion of the data and retrieval of the data and deletion of the data. Okay, insertion, retrieval and deletion of the data. Not only this thing, and how fast the data is actually getting retrieved, the entire thing. If we want to monitor this entire flow of data, that is the insertion, retrieval, deletion and how fast the data is getting retrieved, we use a management system R called DBMS, that is database management system. In this database management system, we have a specific category. We have a specific category. What is that category here? I'm going to mention it here as RDBMS. RDBMS. But what is it? RDBMS is nothing but it's relational database management system. The only difference between this database management system and RDBMS is nothing but it's also a DBMS. RDBMS is also a DBMS, but why are we going to use it? If you want to understand about this RDBMS, first you want to know something related to this RDBMS. The first one is nothing but each and everything in RDBMS will be stored in the form of relations. So each and every element that we store in RDBMS will be stored in the form of relations. Okay. And the second one is we use tables. We use tables in RDBMS to store the data. For storing the data, we always use tables in RDBMS. And what are the examples of RDBMS? When I say RDBMS, you have enough knowledge now. At least you know what is meant by RDBMS. It's nothing but a relational database. The entire data is getting stored in RDBMS in the form of tables based on the relations. Okay, and if you ask me uh, to give some examples of RDBMS, I would say the first and uh, like most popular RDBMS is nothing but the one which I am going to explain you right now. MySQL. MySQL or MySQL, whatever it is, you can call whatever the way that you are comfortable with. MySQL or Oracle SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server, and PostgreSQL, SQLite, and MariaDB. So these are all the examples of RDBMS. Okay. So now I'm going to explain you the core concept of what is the usage of SQL. So okay, but why are we going to use this SQL? Imagine we have a user in our company. Everybody are nothing but the users, right? So those whoever works in a company are nothing but employees, nothing but users. Okay, I would consider all of them as users. Okay, so here we have a user and here we have some database. Here we have a database for our company. So in our company, everything that is related to the company will be stored in a database. Database is not like a Excel file or a CSV file, because in a single CSV file or an Excel file only a limited amount of data can be stored, but to operate some millions and crores of data, we always it's always desirable to have a database like this, like MySQL or any other RDBMS. So this is a database, and here in database we have some tables like this. The tables can be connected or they may not be connected. For example, see, these tables can be connected or some tables may not be connected. That doesn't matter. But here at the end of the day, this is a database and this is my user. Okay, and if you want to extract some data, the user will be providing some input to my database, and this database is going to give me some output. So this will be the scenario. First the user will provide some input, and the DB will prepare the data according based on the input, and it will provide you the required output that the user wanted. Okay, so the synopsis of this explanation is nothing but we have tons of data, but all the data is not of so useful all the time. We only need some part of data at some specific times. So to retrieve the data that is very much useful for a particular user, it's a desirable practice to store the entire data in a database format. Then only the user can slice and dice the data whatever he wants. He doesn't need the entire data, he only needs a part of data. So that's why it's a good practice to use database to retrieve the data. Okay, so this is why we are actually using this SQL or MySQL. Now I am going to explain you all the commands that are involved in MySQL. So when I say commands, we have 5 categories of commands. Commands. So the first category of commands are DDL. The second one is DML, and the third one is DQL, and the fourth one is DCL. The fifth one, that is the last one, is TCL. Now we have seen all the commands involved in this MySQL, but I know you are very much curious to know what are all these commands about. So first I'll be providing the full form of these commands and then I'll be explaining one after the other. So what do you mean by this DDL? The full form of DDL is nothing but data definition language. What is DML? Data manipulation language. What is DQL? Data query language. What is DCL? Data control language. Transactional control language. So these are the 5 categories of commands in MySQL. So we have total 5 categories of commands in MySQL. Now I'll be explaining one after the other. Okay. So what do you mean by this DDL command? So it is an operation such as it involves creation and modifying and deleting. Creating, modifying and deleting database objects is nothing but DDL, that is data definition language. Okay. Using this data definition language, we can create a new schema as well as we can also modify the existing schema. Now, what do you mean by schema? A schema is nothing but it's a kind of table. For example, we have this table. Here we have columns, rows, likewise. So this is nothing but a schema. Okay. Using this data definition language, we can create a new schema. This is a new schema which has been created just now. Okay. Using this DDL, that is data definition language, we can create a new schema and also we can modify this existing schema. After this schema has been created, now we can also modify, like we can do some internal changes, like we can change the name of the columns and everything like that. We can also modify the values of it using DDL, and we can also delete some part of the schema or the entire schema as well. So creation of a new schema, modifying the existing schema, and deletion of the schema comes under this DDL part, that is nothing but data definition language. Okay, so this is all about the theoretical concepts of DDL commands. Now I'll be taking you to the direct MySQL application. So if you want to go to the MySQL application, then what you have to do, here in the search bar you have to search for MySQL. So now it was already installed. If you haven't installed, just watch my MySQL installation video completely, then you will be able to install it. Okay, I'll be providing you the link, but not now, later sometime. Okay, now I'll be taking you to the MySQL workbench. It may take some time as it needs to be loaded. Okay, so the first thing, whenever you tap this MySQL workbench icon, so this would be the first home page that you will be getting. Now when you tap this local instance, it will take you to this particular thing. Now I am going to this file option, and here I am selecting this new query tab, or you can also press this shortcut, that is Ctrl plus T. Either way it will work. Either you can go to this file option and select this new query tab, or you can directly press Ctrl plus T. See, now SQL file 3. Now I am pressing Ctrl plus T. Another query tab has been opened. Okay. For the sake of simplicity, I am just closing this unnecessary tabs. Okay. So now I have closed that unnecessary tabs, and see, when you just look at this particular ribbon is pretty much similar to our Excel ribbon. It consists of all the options available in MySQL, and when you look at this left pane here, it will be having some of the options to monitor the server status, client connections, users and privileges. These are all very much important, but not at this particular point. I'll be explaining about each of these features later in some part of this playlist. Now you have to focus on this particular area, that is the white space available here. Now this particular thing where my cursor is actually blinking, this particular area is all about writing SQL queries. Okay, and the thing here that you are actually seeing here is, it's not of pretty much useful, so you can disable this thing or you can just remove this thing. But I mean, these three panes were automatically selected, that is this, the left one, this particular navigation pane, we need it. Okay, and when you see here the below one, that is this one, this is the output pane. Actually, when you enter the SQL queries and when you execute that, whatever the output that is being generated, that will be shown here as an output. So this is pretty much useful. but not this one. That is the right one. That is this one, this jump to section everything, SQL additions. It is not of pretty much helpful, so I'm actually removing it. So if I remove it, the entire part will be gone. So now I will uh, I will tell you some of the basic things that you need to do. Okay, if you want to create a new database, what are the things that you have to do? So before creating anything, it is a good practice of uh, like naming it. For example, if you want to create a new database, just give it a heading. So in SQL, everybody knows in Python for using the comments, we use a pound symbol, but here if you want to use the comments, you have to use this double dash. Now you can type whatever you want. For example, creating a new database. Okay, I think now it is clearly visible, I think, for you. Okay, so creating a new database, I have typed this using this double dash. If you just press double dash before a text, it automatically turns out to a comment. Otherwise, what happens if I write the same thing without the double dash? See, the entire thing would be an would goes into the error part. This creating is, it doesn't exist in the MySQL workbench, entire MySQL workbench, so it would definitely throw it as an error. So to avoid this, you just have to uh, press double dash in front of this and press space. Now the entire phrase has been converted into a text. Okay, okay, so enough of theory. Now let's jump how to create a new database. If you want to create a new database, the most important keyword that you have to use is nothing but this create. So it is case insensitive actually. For example, either way it will work. If you want to use this create same keyword in cap letters, either way it will work. So whatever you want you can use, but I would highly suggest you to use this caps letter, that is block letters. So if you want to create a new database, use this keyword, that is create, and give the space. After that, type the keyword database and give it a space, and then give the database name. What is the database name actually? Whatever the name that you want to name it for your database, you can pass it. For example, I am passing it as a sample database, so I am passing sample db. So sample db is the name of the database. Since it's a name, it won't get highlighted. Okay, so now finally we have used this create keyword and database keyword, and this is the name of the database. Now end this query with a semicolon. Now the query is completed, you can execute it. For if you want to execute it, you can do it in two ways. First, select this entire query and go to this bolt option. You just tap on this thunder option and automatically the query will get executed. Just see this. See here in the output section, you can definitely see the statement called create database sample db, one rows affected, and if you see this green symbol, green tick over here, it would definitely say that this query has been generated. Now if you want to look at this sample db, you want to check whether the sample db has been created it or not. So what you can do, you can just use, you can just see all the databases that are available. So to see all the databases that are available, you can use this keyword show databases. Show databases. If you select this show databases and tap on this thunder icon, automatically it will show you this entire all the databases that are available in your system. Okay, so these are all the databases that are available, but where is our database, that is the sample DB that we have just now created? Here it is. So finally the database has been created, but it is of empty, there is nothing in it. Okay, we have to load the data inside it. We have to create some of the tables and we have to load the data inside the tables, then only we can use it. But before that, I just want to use it. So even before creating or even before inserting the data into a database, or even before creating a table into the database, first you have to use this database. For that you have to just use a keyword called use, and after that use you have to pass the database name. What is the database name here? Sample DB is my database name, and press the semicolon to terminate the query. Now instead of selecting this entire statement and pressing this thunder button all the time, you can simply put the cursor anywhere in this row. In the sense, you can keep your cursor here or here or here or after the semicolon, wherever you want, but in this particular row you can keep your cursor anywhere you want. After that you can just press Ctrl plus enter, Ctrl enter. If you press this Ctrl enter, automatically this entire query has been executed. You can confirm it by seeing this green tick option. See, 0 rows affected. Now you are ready to use this sample DB. Also, if you don't like to create this DB, or there something has happened and you are not happy with this database and you want to remove it, in the sense you want to delete it, how to delete this database? For that we have an option called drop. We have a keyword called drop, and then just pass the database keyword here, because we are at the end of the day we are dropping a database. Now which database that you want to drop, give the database name sample DB and press the semicolon to terminate the query. Now instead of doing this, selecting and pressing this thunder, you can just simply place your cursor anywhere in this row and press Ctrl enter. See, when I check, I just want to check whether this particular database, that is sample DB, has been deleted or not. So I want to check whether it is available in all the databases or not. So for that I am just uh, running the same query that I have used earlier, show databases. See, information schema, ML Naruto, MySQL, performance schema, and sys. These are the only databases that are available in my entire system. So there is no sample DB database because earlier we have dropped it. See, this is the use of this drop database sample DB. In this way we can create a new database and we can check whether our database has been created or not, and we can also check all the available databases in our system. We can use the databases using this command, and we can delete the database if we don't want this database to be generated in our system. So that's all for this lecture, and in the next video I'll be explaining some of the other commands in DDL, that is data definition language. Thank you.